As your MLA in Saint Croix this year after Election Day, October 21st, I will be working tirelessly on 5 solutions to our biggest challenges in our riding. Target number one, as we've talked about the previous few days, is affordable housing, or rather unaffordable housing. So jump back and check out that series if you haven't yet. Today, I want to start talking about target number two, which is housing for all, or in our case, a total lack of housing for all. Now, what does all mean when I say all? Well, of course, that captures people who are relatively financially stable or maybe even privileged. If you're like myself, you haven't struggled with precarious housing as an adult. I did as somebody who's younger, and I'll talk about that. But for many New Brunswickers, thousands of New Brunswickers every year, they are affected with precarious housing. And so housing for all means that we need, as a province, to provide 3 types of housing for folks who are precariously housed. Okay. So I want to cover those today. And the way I want to do it is by way of kind of an empathy experiment. Again, if you have never experienced the need for one of these 3 services, then this is an empathy experiment. If you are watching today, experiment. And if you're watching today, maybe you're saying, oh, I have experienced one or both or all 3 of the need for these services. If you are one of those people, you could teach me probably more than I am about to say. So thank you for watching. But bringing housing for all really is like a 3-legged stool. Without all 3, it's going to collapse. It is not sustainable. It's too expensive for the province. I know maybe as a taxpayer, you're always thinking about expense, Green Party, pie in the sky, let's just throw money at a problem. You have to solve all 3 of these things at the same time. Thought experiment, put ourselves in somebody's shoes, number 1, which will lead to our first kind of housing. I want you to imagine you are a single mother. You have moved to New Brunswick. You don't know many people. Maybe you have a child or 2. And you have come here, you meet someone, you move in with them. And so you are living as a couple with your own children, and that person becomes abusive. You try to stick it out for some time, but it just becomes unsustainable. You are starting to get physically abused, your children are being abused, and so you decide you need to get out of there as soon as possible. You don't know anybody yet. Who can you call? This is where our first kind of housing comes in, that the province funds and needs to fund a lot more. We'll talk more about that. This is transitional housing. Transitional housing is for women and trans folks and there's some specifically for Indigenous women in our province. For 30 days, a transitional housing will take in women, families, trans people, and help them become established, take them out of a dangerous situation, and give them the care and the services they need for 30 days. That's transitional housing. I want you to imagine now that you are renting. You are struggling to keep up with the bills. Your minimum wage job is not covering enough for rent and food and your transportation to get there. And the day finally comes where you are evicted. Half of the people who are experiencing homelessness are experiencing it because they have been evicted. I was rent evicted in Toronto, wasn't sure where we were going to live. And so this is an example of, thankfully, we could land somewhere. Many New Brunswickers have nowhere to go. So imagine you are given that eviction notice. There is no availability anywhere. Rental rates are extremely low right now, in the point single digits in some places. And so you are on the street for the first time in your life because you could not cover the rent. Nobody can take you in. Where do you go? You need a shelter, especially if it's cold. So shelters are the second kind of housing, albeit temporary. And by temporary, I mean just nightly, that the province provides under social development. The third scenario, I want you to imagine you have an addiction. Maybe in one of the other two scenarios, you started, substance using, then abusing, then becoming dependent on opiates, barbiturates, what have you. You are struggling to keep a job. You are struggling to maintain a house and any sort of sustainable, healthy living. You realize you need help and you need it now because you might end up on the street or needing to continue to associate with friends and colleagues who continue to abuse, and you decide you don't want to do that anymore. So you call a treatment facility. This is to get you off of your addictions. You will submit yourself to the care of the experts, proven programs that will make sure you can get yourself off of these addictive substances. That, friends, is treatment facilities. That will, like I say, helps people transition off of drugs. Those are the three, I should say, drugs or alcohol or any addictive substance. Those are the three types of housing services that need to be in place in New Brunswick. This is live for 5. I'm looking at the clock. I've already used up all my time, but I did want to give you an overview of what the next few days are going to spend time looking at as your MLA in New Brunswick. And as somebody who lives in St. Stephen, I'm sure you see folks who are experiencing homelessness all around. Some people just say, just make them go away. Hey, we all want everyone to have housing. We want housing for all, but all needs to cover off people who are experiencing those three different circumstances right now. And we'll talk more about this addiction treatment services. It's a 3 to 6 month waiting list. So in that scenario, you call a treatment center and they say, yes, we can get you in. It's July. See you in the fall or in December. What do you think is going to happen to that person? If you need addictions treatment, you need it because you are addicted. And how can you wait 6 months? Do you see what I'm saying? So this is the kind of funding and the kind of priority that the provincial government needs to start focusing on and putting more funding towards. And as your MLA, I will not accept anything less. It is the key to solving the homeless crisis, not just affordable housing, but housing for all for our common good. I'm going to be back tomorrow, like I say, to unpack those three types of housing in the next few days. Follow this channel, subscribe on YouTube, or like my MLA page. And feel free to drop me an email, mark.groleau@greenpartynb.ca. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this or anything else. I can't wait to meet you at your door and see you tomorrow as we talk more about how to have courage to participate in our system